Yeah, guys, got another little quick job. We were on a ride about a week or so ago. This is my daughter's Thumpster. Not a bad bike. Not for your elite, like really hard rider, but yeah, quite comfortable to ride, even as an adult. Plenty of punch down low. Even top end is not bad. Good little fun bike. Yeah, she was, we were doing some single trail riding through the bush, and she had a couple of spills, and on one of the spills she has broken, not the clutch lever, but the perch for the clutch lever. So look, these things are manufactured in China. The company that owns it, or that I bought it from, is in Perth, Australia. I'm not sure if they're exclusive or not. I have no idea. I just saw this bike had been upgraded from the previous model with you got high and low compression, and you've also got preload on the forks, and they're a 50mm fork, so they're a decent size. And you've got the same on the, actually I think the rear shock is just preload, no compression, which is plenty for my daughter. But they also put an enclosed air box. It's got an upgraded chain. The rims are upgraded as well, and they also upgraded something else which I can't quite remember right now. Yeah, can't remember. But the new upgrades were better than my other daughter's bike, which she had a CF, a Crossfire, another Chinese bike. But yeah, these upgrades surpassed that one, so I spent a little extra cash and I bought this one. Still come in under 3,000, and that was delivered to the door. So she's been pretty happy with it. I assembled it, so I didn't have to pay for somebody to assemble. Not a bad little bike for what she uses it for, which is nothing too crazy for sure. Mainly just sort of riding around, bit in the bush ride, some small jumps, nothing crazy. I've had a go on it, and it is a fairly capable bike. But if you're going to go racing, you're going to break stuff on it, because like we're seeing here, Chinese parts and stuff, so they are they're not, look, you can break even the good stuff. And I'm surprised that it didn't snap here at the clutch lever, which is usually the weak point, because you've got that line, because you have to sandwich the outer part of the perch between. So you got that thin, like tongue, I suppose, where the bolt holds it on for the pivot point. Well, normally they snap across there because that's a weak point, but obviously the casting was weaker than the lever. So I'm changing the whole perch, obviously, because they're no good, and I'm going to look, I'm sure these are made in China too. I'm going to a pivot type clutch lever, and I'm even doing that on the brake lever. These are branded ASV. I've seen them around for a while. Quality looks pretty good, but I'm sure they're made in China as well, again as well. Supposed to be CNC'd. 6160 aluminium, but I'm not sure about the perch. But the difference with these perches is that they pivot, so if the bike goes and hits the ground, when the lever hits the ground, it will perch, it'll lift up and hopefully not break the perch or the lever. I tried looking for ones like on my bike. I've got one. It's a Chinese one. I've got a Honda CRF, and I broke the brake lever. No, sorry, the clutch lever twice on a couple of rides that I went on. So I initially went to one that was stated unbreakable. It had a pivot point here, which lets it pivot, the handle pivot up and down, as well as allowing the whole assembly to pivot up like that. I tried getting one for them, but I could not find them anymore. And the ones I could find were fairly expensive, which didn't bother me, but they weren't going to get here in time for our next ride. So I bought these. We'll see how they go. If she manages to break this one, then we'll buy the other ones. So we're going to be fitting this today. This is the clutch lever, and I don't know why, but for some reason the brake levers are shorter. I don't know why that is. But even though, actually it's only like a little bit shorter than her original one, which isn't too bad. So I think her clutch lever originally is longer anyway. Must be just how they come. Okay, so we can live with that. And look, because she didn't break this, I can keep this lever as a spare just in case, and it's only a quick one bolt, undo the cable, and she can be on her way again. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get into it. First thing we need to do is we need to remove the old perch, and I think I might need a socket set. So it's an 8mm socket. Might even put the short extension on there. Just a bit more room. So the perch has 2 bolts which hold it on, then clamp it to the handlebar. It's pretty easy. There we are. Our perch is off. So now we have to remove our cable, and we wind our adjuster all the way in to slacken the cable off as much as we can. But we do have to line up. This is our adjuster. Sorry, this is our mount adjuster, which threads into the body of the perch here. And then you have what you call your little lock nut, which once you adjust your cable tension, you then lock it so that it doesn't alter with vibration while you're riding. But there is also a slot in your adjuster and a slot in your locking nut and a slot in your adjuster so that the cable can be installed and removed. So you need to line them up with each other, and you may have to go a full rotation so that they all line up like that. So then the cable can be pulled and removed like that. Now you have a spring at the other end of the cable which mounts to the engine body, and that keeps tension on the cable. There is usually some sort of adjuster on the other end too. If you can't do it by hand, which you should be able to because you've got the leverage here anyway. But if for some reason you need to slack it off down near the engine, you can do that. It's usually on the opposite side, funnily enough, especially on these bikes. And there it is there. So you've got a little bit of adjustment here. Actually, this one doesn't. But see the slot in the bracket here? You should be able to pull that up, and that'll give you enough slack. So this is the actual lever that activates the clutch internally. So that's got a spring on it. So if you push up on there, that should give you enough slack that you can lift this up and over there, and there's a slot there so the cable can come out. Once you take that out, that should give you plenty of slack to remove the other end if you couldn't do it the way we did it, the way I did it. So now we have that off. These are basically like a push bike lever, same sort of principle. Is you lift them up, and then the little cable knob comes out. And this one actually has a plastic shroud around it, so it doesn't go wearing into the aluminium on your handle, which is something I haven't quite seen on these cheaper bikes before. And now I have a spare lever and bolt just in case, and I'll put that in my spares when we go out. To install our new brake lever, which comes with its own perch. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the cover from there, and it has its own shielding with it, so I'll remove this one. That won't be needed anymore. So what I've done is this little plastic sleeve, I've taken it off the little lead anchor, I suppose you'd call it, to make it a bit smaller, to get it inside the rubber sleeve here. And then now I'll push that through the hole on its own. And we'll follow the cable through afterwards. And now I'll refit this sleeve. It just made it a lot easier to get it on. Get it through there. So we'll just open that up now and fit it back over the anchor. Okay, so now these are an Allen key style bolts, and they are all stainless steel, where the original ones are, I don't know what you call them. They've got a finish on them to stop them rusting, but they're still steel. So without that finish, they will rust. Whereas these are stainless steel, so that is always a plus. On bikes, especially dirt bikes, they're in the mud. You're washing them all the time. I always tend to replace the bolts with stainless steel ones. Just 304 is good enough. Doesn't have to be expensive 316 stainless steel. 304 is still mildly magnetic, but it has great corrosive properties to 304, and for these type of things it's quite strong enough so you don't get them rusting, because over a long period of time, if you take these sort of things on and off enough, you wear all the coatings off the edges and then they start to rust. It's just how it is. It looks great new, but then you start getting rusty. Oh, careful, Gixie. Good girl. How are you? Good girl. There you go. Good girl. All right, off you go. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. You want more. You always want more. Good girl. All right, so I'll grab an Allen key and we'll get this loosened off. So get it on the handlebar. So we'll loosen off the perch, and this is the same. It's a split perch like the other one. Then there's no nuts. The aluminium body is threaded, so when you're tightening them up, don't over tighten them or you'll strip it because it's aluminium. Right, now this has a rubber on the inside that's split. Well, it's sort of a plastic sleeve more than rubber by the feel of it. So open it up, and that's to protect your handlebar. And then we'll fit our lever, and you don't want it sticking out past your handlebar. You want your handlebar to protect your lever. So if you push it back there, like it's sort of flush, but I'd rather just go forward a little bit more so it's in, because generally your hand will be close to the inside of the bar anyway. And it just gives you that little bit extra room to protect your lever. This is what's happened. One side of the perch, well, perch clamp I suppose you call it, is thicker than the other side. Now I think I had the thicker side mounted to where the thinner side was meant to go, and probably putting the wrong length bolt in as well. I should have taken more notice, but this is something unusual. I haven't seen this before, so it's probably why I hadn't taken any notice of it. So I'm going to put the thicker side on the back here now and the thinner side on the front, and hopefully now that will give me better clamping, because I wasn't getting any clamping on the bar. And I just measured the bar, it is the right size, thinking that that's the shorter bolt one goes in there. Well, that's going in a bit easier. Just hope we can get this one to go in. Well, that's better. And it's already tightening up. Okay, so shorter bolt went on the front, sorry, the longer bolt went on the front, shorter bolt went on the back. Now we'll sort of line these up. I'll push that back just a little bit to get them, and that feels pretty similar. Okay, so now we have to line these slots up. Now we can sort of see what's going on here. We need to line that notch up so our cable can come through there, through our adjuster slot, through the perch slot, and then our cable will then bend through here and click into there, and then won't be able to come out. So, but we also need it to run through this slot here. So I may need to undo the other end to give me the movement that I need while that's loose. So I might just see if I can. I'm going to do it because I need two hands and I'm holding my hand at the moment. Okay, now I just lifted it out of that slot, and you can see I've got a lot of more movement here now, so I can probably pull the other end. Oh, it's gotten caught on something. What did we caught on? And we can even remove it from this side to give us more slack, the cable. See, I can remove it from that side if we can drop it down enough and pop it out of the slot. Yep, again, I'm going to need 2 hands, and it should, there we go, disconnect, and that should give us a bit of room to play with. And then once we get this end on, should be able to get that back on there. Okay, so we have, this is the clutch tension adjuster, one of them. This consists of the outer adjusting knob, and there's an internal thread, which that shaft runs all the way out to here. That collar there, basically, it hits hard against this, and you can't rotate it anymore, so that it won't actually keep coming off. Excuse me. These Allen key grub screws actually put pressure on a spring on the inside of here, and I don't know if you see the ball bearing there and there, and they create like a spring-loaded ball indent, so every time this slot hits a ball, it will stop, and that way when you're riding it won't keep rotating and loosen off your adjustment. So that's what that ball indent there is for. But when installing it, we need all this, the groove in the adjuster, the groove in this thread adjuster, and this groove, I think that's the same, it's all in line, one piece, but the groove in that little slot there to all line up with the groove in the actual mount here, which it installs just by pushing it in there, and they all need to line up so that you can get your cable through there and into there. So now I'll try and show you as best I can. So what we'll normally do is you'll turn this on the side, push it through the hole, and then click it in like that. Now that everything is in and lined up, you can now turn this. Doesn't need a lot of adjusting, just a turn, so that way it won't pop out. Okay, and we can bring our rubber on there, and we can rotate that and do all that sort of stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to go down the other end. And there we are, that's all ready to go now. Okay, so now we can move on to the front brake lever. That's a little easier because I'm going to be using the original perch for this brake lever, because front brake has a master cylinder. So when you pull this, it actually pushes a piston, which then closes up your brake pads against your front rotor. So if you wanted to change your perch, you would have to change the master cylinder as well, which means you would then have to drain or you know, you'd open up the system to connect the new master cylinder, and you open it up to air, which means you have to bleed it out again. Whereas this is basically a replacement for the lever, goes in there, but see how this one doesn't come up, it stops, where this one will do what the other one did, it'll keep going forward. It's not doing it now. There we go. It'll bend like that, so it won't break. So I'm going to remove this, and then we basically just have to fit this new one. It's a little easier. You can get replacement master cylinders and the brake lever together. You can buy them like that, but there's nothing wrong with her master cylinder, and it just makes for a quicker job without having to go into the fuss of exposing the brake system to air and then having to bleed it out again, it's not a big operation to do that, but there's also the cost is if you don't need to do it, why do it? You know, her brakes work really well. If she was having issues with her brakes, I might say, okay, we'll upgrade the master cylinder and buy a whole new brake perch and everything, but it is all working quite well. Just make sure there's no washer. It's a nylon lock nut, so that's why they don't have a spring washer on there. Okay, and that doesn't even have a cable connected to it. Again, keep the bolt and the nut. If in the unfortunate need arises that she breaks the new one, I have a backup, and it's a quick swap over that one. So, and just take note, this has a sleeve for which it pivots around so the bolt doesn't bind into, don't lose that pivot. The other one, the bolt was built into the pivot because it was a mild steel bolt. This is a stainless steel bolt. Stainless steel rubbing on things is not a good idea, which is why they got this brass, or brass coated, or it could be brass, feels a bit light to be brass, sleeve, so that goes through the hole to act as a bearing. Oops, I've actually put this in the wrong position. We need to insert in the hole, and then we insert the sleeve, or we can put it over the bolt, same difference, and just wiggle it around till it drops in. Hopefully it drops into position like that, and then we have a stainless steel nylon lock nut over the bottom, and we do that up. I'm hoping they're the same size nuts, which they are, but this one is an Allen key, so we'll have to find the right Allen key. So now click that into lock. And again, don't do this up like no tomorrow. It is a nylon lock nut, so it's not going to come loose, but you don't want it loose, you just don't want it tighten to the fact where you strip it, because it is stainless on stainless and that picks up really easily. So yeah, that's probably good enough. So there we are. That doesn't spring back at all, does it? So we've probably done that a little too tight, because it's not allowing the piston to push back out again. Another reason for the bush is that you don't need to do it up that tight, that it's clamped. So we'll back that out. To make sure that that pops out. And there we are. So one that's a lot shorter than, well, I think even the original one was quite short. If we place that in there where it was sitting around there, it's basically the same size. Maybe they do that because the front brake is quite important. You can still ride your bike with your clutch broken. I've done it. It's not easy, but you can do it. But yeah, with a broken front brake lever, it's very hard to brake. Though you do have your rear brake, but rear brakes are nowhere as good as front brakes. But if you were just had to get back to base or back home, you could survive using the back brake. And there we go. So that's loose enough that it pops back out again. It's a nylon lock, so it's not going to come loose. And you can adjust how far out that goes, but you still only get the same amount of travel. It's more just for feel for your hand. So I think we might just nip that up where it is, because it's not too bad. And then I will wait for my daughter and see what she thinks. There we go. Same with this one. We'll have it at the shortest distance. So now I'm just going to nip up the one on this side, just so it doesn't vibrate loose. And again, stainless on stainless, you don't want to do it up too tight. All right, so now let's just sort of clean up a little bit, and I'll come back, I'll start it up, get it running, and we'll see how this clutch feels, and if we need to make any adjustments. All right, back soon. All right, we've cleaned up, bike's off the stand now. And we're going to start it up. Choke up. Fuel is already on. We'll start her up, get her warmed up, and then we'll just test that clutch to make sure that it's, you know, actually disengaging, so we can engage the gear without it taking off and that sort of thing. May need an adjustment, right? It's got a choke that sort of acts as an accelerator as well. It works quite well. You can see it's sort of getting faster and faster, meaning that it's warming up. And then when we drop the choke, it actually, the idles drop down and just idles quite well. Yeah, it's not a bad bike. It's very, very easy to start. But like any bike, if you don't start them for a long time, in the carb, it can get gunged up and you'll have to clean it out. So it pays to just start them up, I don't know, every 2 or 3 months is probably just is all it needs, just to keep that carby jets from gunking up. But yeah, no, it's not a bad little bike. Alright, so now let's let it warmed up a little bit. Let's test out that clutch. So make sure you hold the brake, because you don't want it to take off on you in case the clutch doesn't work. So this is all the way down neutral and one up. Now I'm letting the brake off, and it's not trying to take off. And it's taking off right at the end. Okay, so I've adjusted it basically to as short as possible. It is a fairly new bike, so the cable will most likely stretch a little bit. Not a lot, but it probably will stretch a bit. Sure if it was. All right, come down, good girl. All right. I'm not 100% sure if it was like that before originally or not. I have ridden it, but yeah, just not. Like it did grip a fair way out. It might be similar, but I think it's not gripping until it's a little further out than the other one. But I really don't have any more adjustment for that, unfortunately, and I think it's because the distance for the cable is a little bit longer than the original, so she may have to live with that, because I just don't have any more adjustment for it, unfortunately. It's on the slackest position down the bottom here, and it's on the slackest position here. So unless the cable stretches, she's not going to get any more earlier taken up. But okay, one thing that I will mention now is a good thing to do, especially with a new lever, is to lubricate your levers where they mate. I don't mean take them apart. You can go to that extreme to take them apart, but I certainly get a bit of silicone spray and just squirt in between the surfaces. And this is just a general purpose silicone spray. I think I bought this at Aldi. You can get them at super cheap, like all motorbike places, and sort of Repco, super cheap Autobarn, even Bunnings will probably carry this sort of thing. Some of them come with a nozzle that you bend open and bend down, it'll spray out straight out of the nozzle, end up out of something like this. This is from Aldi, it's quite cheap, so I'll have to push it into there, and then that sort of will focus the spray in between the joints there. So just give it you don't need a lot, just try and sort of direct it into there, a little bit of there, and hit your spring as well, so that, and move it around a bit to get it in there, and even sort of on top, just to work it into those surfaces for a bit of lubrication, so it's not grinding and binding in on them. And the same on the brake lever. The spring is stainless steel, so it won't rust, but it just helps to lubricate things. Oh, and the rain's coming. You can, on this one you can go as far as to spray a bit on that sleeve that it pivots on. Just move inside. Alright, we had a bit of rain there, so we've brought the bike inside. But for all purposes, I think this job is complete. So she has a new clutch, and we've given it a bit of a lube as well. We've adjusted it to the minimum it's got so that it lets out as early as possible, that the cable length will allow. It's not quite to my liking, but I think it's very close, and I don't even think my daughter will probably notice the difference, to tell you the truth. But yeah, we've also replaced the brake lever, and we've given that a spray with some lube just so that it, so everything works without binding. When things rub, you wear your surfaces off, and then the grit that you rub off stays in there and acts like a grinding compound, and it just compounds the whole process into more grinding and wearing out. So if you lube the surfaces, they slide over each other, there's less chance of that sort of thing happening. And really you should be lubricating your cables as well. You can get a little attachment. It's an aluminium, little rectangular aluminium thing that's got a circular rubber insert in there, and that it can clamp over an open part of your cable, and you butt your cable stop, which is this little bit of metal piece, into one end of it, and then you have a little toggle clamp screw that you do up, and it compresses that rubber to completely seal it around the cable. And then there's a little hole in one side where you get that thin the thin tube of your spray can will fit inside it, and then you can spray lube in, and it'll actually get in underneath the sheathing between your cable and the cable sheathing, and that will lubricate the inside of your clutch or brake if you have an accelerator cable as well, same sort of deal. And it lubes inside there, so you get a nice smooth action, right? Because eventually whatever's in there, it dries out, and then the cable will start grinding its way onto the sheathing. That creates more particles in there, which makes it, less smooth, and your cables won't last as long. So being out in the dirt and stuff, yeah, it's a good practice to lubricate your cables so that you can keep a nice smooth action. And your throttle cable is probably one of the most important to do that with. But unfortunately for the throttle cable, you usually have to disconnect the cable to get the amount of slack bare cable to attach this thing to. But I may do that in another video when it's time to do it, when I'm doing a bit of bike maintenance, and I might show you how to do that as well. It's not that difficult, but you do have to take this throttle assembly apart to disconnect the cable from the throttle tube. Yes, so and that can be a reason why, if your throttle doesn't snap back, especially on a bike that doesn't have a push-pull type cable set up, which means when you pull the throttle, or you twist the throttle, one cable pulls and the other cable pushes, because there's a spring at the other side. It's sort of push and pull. a lot of the bigger bikes have that sort of thing. These sort of bikes don't usually have that set up. Neither do like small Japanese bikes or European bikes don't really have that sort of setup. They're more for the bigger bikes. But yeah, it's the same principle. The more, like, if you keep the lubrication up, and we're not talking every time you ride, basically sort of, once a year type thing, or it depends on how often you ride. If you ride a lot in mud and dusty conditions, you might want to do it more often. There's nothing to stop you doing it every ride, but I don't think it's necessary. But then again, it's all down to the individual and how often you ride. But if you feel your cables are not as smooth as they used to be, you might be something you want to do, because it will definitely make them smoother by lubricating them. All right, so that's about it for this video, and I hope this helps you, because it's a very common thing to break levers, and it doesn't really take a big accident. She just sort of was coming out of a corner, got bogged down in a rut that had a lot of loose dirt, and she lost the front. It went down and it just snapped. So it could have been from a previous one weakened it, and then the next one totally broke it. I'm not sure, but it's a common thing to happen. So replacing it with these type of levers can save you. Hopefully the next time it happens, it'll just go like that, and it won't break. But now I do have a spare. She was lucky that it broke the perch and not the lever, because she actually could still use the clutch. She just had to sort of line up the broken pieces back on the perch, and she could use the clutch. It was enough to finish out the day, because I didn't have a spare lever. She was very lucky that it did that. We're all done now, and we've done the brake lever as well, so hopefully she will be right for the next ride. And I even preempted, and I've bought a set for my other daughter's bike as well, and I will change them over, but it's basically the same thing. It's just on a different bike. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Always doing little jobs that will help. And if you have a particular job that you're not sure of, or you'd like to see if I can help out with, put something in the comments and I will try to help you out, either by commenting back, or if it's a more in-depth question, I may be able to even make a video about it. No worries. Cheers, and catch you later.